Hello. Thank you so much for joining me on the mat today. Today we are taking the first video in what will become a 3-video series. And this one is just a little bit of prep to get you set up for the following two. What we're going to be learning today is how to build a supported base to use for restorative postures in your prenatal practice. So this base, or this setup that we're going to use quite a bit of props for, is sometimes called a mama's nest or sometimes called a mama's throne. It is one of the best things you can do during your prenatal practice. It sets you up to find a lot more accessibility in different restorative postures. And just kind of opens the door so that you don't have to be flat on your back, which we're really not recommending in the second and third trimester. And so it gives you a little more leeway, a little more options. But it is a little labor intensive to get settled and to get set into. And as you can see, it requires more props than we might typically take when we're at a studio or even when we're at home. So what you're going to want today is a great big bolster. If you don't have one of these bolsters, I totally understand. They are a little pricey. You can definitely use a pillow, but think about using a pillow or a cushion that has some heft to it and some weight to it, something that's a little sturdier and a little thicker. So maybe like a couch cushion or a body pillow, or maybe even your pregnancy pillow if you've gotten one of those. We're also going to need 3 blankets. These blankets can be regular pillows as well if that's a little easier for you, if you don't have throw blankets lying around like I do. I've got chests and bins of them everywhere. But yeah, you'll want 3 of these. And then 4 blocks. Now, again, 4 blocks is kind of a lot for someone to have at home. If you don't have all 4, grab a couple extra pillows or a couple extra blankets and we'll be able to substitute those in. So to get started, to find our way into this mama's nest or mama's throne, the very first thing you're going to do is scoot your cat out of the way. And then you are going to take your first 2 blocks. And those 2 blocks, move it kitten, are going to make almost a T shape at the top of your mat. So you want one on the highest setting, right at the top edge of your mat, and one on the medium setting, butting up right against that tall one. From there, you're going to grab your bolster, you're going to move your cat, and you are going to let that bolster line up with your blocks. So we create a nice little incline. So again, as we get later in our pregnancy, we don't want to really lay flat on our back because that can put a lot of pressure on your vena cava. If you're like me, it also puts a lot of pressure on your SI joint and your sciatic nerve, which might not feel super great. Again, to help protect that SI joint and sciatic nerve, we're going to take one of our blankets and we are going to set it right at the bottom edge of that bolster. So that's going to be where our tush goes in a little bit. From here, we're going to find our other blankets and we're going to roll them up. So they make little sausages or little burritos. These are going to find their way under our legs eventually. So you'll take one on each side of your mat towards the bottom-ish edge of your mat. And then our last 2 blocks are also going to come to each edge of our mat, and they are going to help support our arms. So we've made almost a little cocoon shape, a little barrier, right? We've blockaded ourselves into our mat here, but that's totally fine because we're going to be able to support all of our joints and get really deep into a state of relaxation. So when you come into your mama's nest or your mama's throne, you're going to let your tush butt right up against that bolster. And this is going to take some maneuvering and some getting settled into, which is fine, just like Shavasana. Sometimes it takes us a minute to really find our way into that perfect space, but once we get there, it is so worth it. So with your tush right up against your bolster, feet are going to come into a Baddha Konasana, or a triangle or cobbler's posed, feet together, knees nice and wide. You're going to take those other 2 blankets or blocks or pillows, whatever you have, and just bring them right underneath your knees and right underneath your thighs. So we're not really letting gravity take complete support here, complete control here, because when we get, excuse me, later in our pregnancy, that relaxin really starts to kick in, and there's definite possibility of overstretching or staying in a posture for too long. From here, we're gonna lay back on that bolster, nice and supported by our blocks and our incline. It should be the full length of our back to our head, so we shouldn't have any amount of hang off of our head off of the bolster. But if you do, just scoot your tush down a little bit. So we want our head and neck nice and supported. And then we're gonna scooch those blocks up as high as we need them to be arm rests or pet rests, depending on who's around and about today. So we've got ourselves all nice and set up in this beautiful mama's throne, supported, relaxed, taken care of. And again, if you need to wiggle, if you need to find those arms a little further forward, further back, if you want to be palm down or palm up, you can turn your palm blocks on an angle so they follow the length of your forearm. And then you can let those pillows or blankets you've got under your knees come in or out or up or down as you see fit. If you wanted a little bonus cushion under your ankles, you could take a 4th blanket and put it under your ankles. So we're a little supported there too, and those joints don't press quite as deep into the floor. I know sometimes when our feet are swollen, especially, having that skin on skin or skin on the mat can be a little uncomfortable. But that, my friends, is how we set up a mama's throne or a mama's nest for supported prenatal postures. If you have any questions at all, please let me know. If you want to know a little more about props you can substitute in and out, or different things you can add or subtract, I'm happy to answer that too. And stay tuned for the next video in our series where I will lead you through some supported postures using this beautiful base we've just built. Thank you again. May the divine light in me honor the divine light in you. Namaste.